Hi, I'm James Glass. I'm going to talk to you today about lacing a wheel. We're not going to talk about how you select your components, how you select your spokes. We're not going to talk about spoke length. That's a whole nother ball game. What we're going to talk about today is the proper way to lace a wheel so that the trailing spokes and drive spokes are in the right place, and so that when you're all done, I laced this other wheel earlier, you'll have your valve stem at the biggest possible opening, which is here. Here's the valve stem hole right here, and you'll notice this is the largest gap between the spokes. There's 3 different gaps between the spokes when a wheel is laced properly. 2 spokes that are parallel, 2 spokes that are much smaller and kind of form a triangle, and then this little triangle guy. So when you're all done, you want to be able to say that you can get the valve stem between the largest possible gap. It makes putting air in easier. And it's also kind of nice to line up the stickers on the wheel with the printing on the hub. And I'll show you how to do that. And it all starts with the key spoke, which is a drive side spoke, which means that that's the side with the freewheel or the cassette on it where the gears go. And it's a trailing spoke, which means that viewed from a clockwise direction, it looks like this. It's like the tail of a comet. And it's a spoke that has the head on the outside. And you can take a look there. That's the little mushroom dude on the bottom of the spoke. It goes on the outside of the flange. And it's super important to make sure that you take a look at how your rim is drilled. The key spoke is going to go, looking at it from the right hand side, the key spoke is going to go immediately next to the valve stem hole or one away from it. And what determines whether it goes next to or one away from it is the angle upon which the rim is drilled. In the super old days, especially with less expensive rims, you might get rims that were essentially drilled at 90 degrees, looking down at the wheel. That doesn't happen anymore. I can't imagine that you'd be lacing a wheel that would be built like that. So all the wheels that you would be lacing are going to have just less than 90 degrees off-drilled holes. So they're going to be like this, so they're going to be like this, and they're going to flare out and go up to the hub. In this particular rim, the one that's right next to the valve stem hole is actually going to the non-drive side. So the first drive side rim is 2 away from the hole, and that is where, we're going to be putting the first spoke. Before I started, I used spoke prep, and you can Google and see what that is. And it comes in different colors, so if you have drive side spokes that are a different length, which almost assuredly they're going to be shorter than your non-drive side spokes, you can use the spoke prep's all the same, but you can use different colors so that you don't mix your spokes up. I used a tan color for my shorter spokes, and I used a blue for my longer spokes. And so that's the most important thing. So I'm going to have this guy, I got it in the right hole, 2 away from the valve stem hole. And actually I don't. It's getting old, it's dark in here. Got my bifocals on. Oh, let me look at that now. There's 2 away. I find that as I age, I can't get enough light. So, okay, now I'm 2 away. And I took the time before I put this in so that when I turn this about 15 or 20 degrees, the label on the hub will match the label at the bottom of the rim. And that way, the valve stem will be at the top at 12 o'clock. You'll come straight down through the the label, which in this case this is a Dior hub, and it'll go down to the sticker on the rim. You don't have to do that, but it is kind of nice if all your stickers line up. Kind of nice. So at that point, there's not a whole lot to do that's fancy. It's just a matter of dropping in the remainder of the trailing spokes, and they're going to go every other spoke on the hub, and just save yourself time and drop them all in right away. Remember, skip a hole. And just go round and round and round and round. And we are doing, in this video, a really conventional 3-cross pattern. And you can Google and find out about different ways to lace wheels. I'm building up a townie bike with disc brakes, maybe pulling trailers and a lot of things. So I wanted heavy duty brakes and kind of bomber proof hubs, and got these really heavy Alex rims, which are actually a touring rim, super strong. They're double walled. You can Google all these terms. So I'm using 14 gauge solid stainless steel spokes and DT nipples, DT spokes. So anyway, like I said, that's not the point of this video. The point is just lacing. So once you've dropped all that in and you know what you're doing, you're going to skip a hole here, but for 3-cross, you're going to skip 3 holes up here and go in the 4th. And you'll know you've done it right because when you line it up, you'll notice that the drill hole is coming back to this side. You'll see that it's offset and drilled to the side. And that's it. Now I'm going to just go ahead and lace the rest of these up. Maybe I can figure out how to fast forward the video because this is kind of a boring part. I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of this. Time for a bit more peppermint tea. Okie dokie. So this next spoke is also extremely critical to install, because if you don't put this one in right, nothing's going to line up. So, and by the way, this doesn't really matter whether you're 32 or 36 hole, 28 hole. Doesn't really matter how many holes are in your rim. What I'm talking about today in lacing works the same for all that. So this next spoke is going to go on the other side. It's also going to be a trailing spoke. It's also going to have the head on the outside. And if you do this right, if you look really closely, you'll notice that the holes that are drilled in the hub on one side of the hub do not line up perfectly with the holes that are on the other side of the hub. They're actually slightly off. So the second key spoke is going to be to the right a little bit of the primary key spoke. So here's my valve stem. You're looking at it from the right hand side. I'm looking at it from the left hand side. In this case, I skipped a hole. I came over. Since I skipped a hole, this one's going to line up in that hole. If I hadn't skipped a hole, it would be on the other side of the valve stem. So I'm going to go down, follow the key spoke back, and when I drop this trailing spoke, it's going to come from the outside, because remember the head's got to be on the outside. It is going to be a little bit to the right. It's going to be right in between those two spokes. And this is so crucial. So I'm dropping it in, it's going over to the right, the head is sticking out. I'm going to bring it up and stick a nipple on. And you will notice, of course remember this is going to be turned and whatnot later, but you'll notice, of course you're looking at it from the right hand side, I'm on the left hand side, but I've got the valve stem, got the secondary key spoke, the second most important spoke you've got to get in the right place, and then the key spoke. And you'll see that they're just offset very slightly. The heads are facing out. Once you've got this down, everything else is really just sort of dropping spokes in and remembering to skip every one on the hub and skip every 3 on the rim for a 3 cross. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I didn't want to get into the details of like choosing all the components and things like that, but I did talk a little bit about lining up the sticker and this and that. You do want to make the wheel look good. It is, you know, you're not going to go to the trouble of, you know, lacing up this whole wheel and figuring out, you know, if you haven't done it before especially, and figuring out how to lace it, figuring out how to tension it. I'll do another video on tensioning. One of the things that you can make it look good is the line the stickers up, but the other thing is you gotta not scratch the heck out of the rim. The ends of the spokes have little threads on them, obviously, and so when you're lacing everything, do your best not to scratch the finish. It's usually some kind of anodized finish. It just looks nice, you know. Anyway, so go ahead and drop in the remainder of these trailing spokes for the left-hand side, the non-drive side. And again, you can just drop these in. You're going to drop it in every other one. By the way, I'm using my longer spokes over on this side. They're not longer by much, 1 or 2 millimeters, I can't remember. I used an online spoke calculator, so I wouldn't have to do any math. Those other ones might have been 292 millimeters, these might be 294 or whatever. But I'm skipping every other hole on the hub. And just like before, when I bring these guys up, I'm going to skip every 3rd one. You're going to notice a pattern here. So if I skip 1, 2, 3, well, the 4th hole lines up exactly to the right of this, right? So it gets easier and easier to, you can pay less and less attention as you thread your nipples on and lace your spokes in the rim. You can basically just sort of like, oh yeah, look at that, just to the right, boom, chuck it done. At this point you don't have any lead spokes in, so it's really easy to thread the nipples on. It's not a big deal at all. When you get a little bit farther along, as you'll see, it takes a little bit more work, takes a little bit more effort to get the nipples on, because the spokes won't be sticking as far past the wheel. But yeah, so just go ahead and carry on. Okay, I've zoomed in a skosh, a little bit, so that you can see the next step. I've already got it started so you can see it. I'm gonna hold it up close to the camera. So the trailing spokes are completely installed. They're ready to rock. All the heads are on the outside, down by the hub, and now it's time to put the lead spokes in. And what I've done on the right side is I've made sure that I've turned the hub clockwise, the way it's going to be driven, not counterclockwise. That's very important. And you can pick any of the remaining holes around your hub and drop a lead spoke in. We'll go ahead and do the drive side. And the nice thing about all the lead spokes is they drop in from the other side like this. And the heads are on the inside, so when you lace this thing up, it makes it tremendously easier to deal with. You're not trying to like weave in spokes and all that jazz. So I've dropped a spoke in. It's this one right here. The head is on the inside of the hub. I have gone over this first spoke. I have gone over this second spoke. I then weaved it underneath the third spoke, 3-cross pattern, 1, 2, 3, and then brought it up to its place on the rim. And its place on the rim is really only one place to put it. You'll have a series of holes here, but only one of them is going to be drilled to accept drive side spokes. And so that's where you're going to put it. So of these 2 holes that are up here, in all these series, you have 2 holes. You get 2 holes all the way around, right? You can't go wrong. If you're not sure which hole to bring it in, just bring it into the one that lines up with the drill out, and that's it. And at that point, you can drop in the remainder of, if you're building a 36, you can drop in 9. If you're building a 32, it's going to be different. If it's going to be 20, it's going to be different. It doesn't really matter how many spokes you drop in. But at this point, go ahead and drop in all of your lead spokes. And I'm doing the drive side, so I got my short spokes color coded, so I don't mess it up. Back in the days, back in the 80s, when I first started building wheels, I used to use linseed oil, which is, it's effective. It acts as a nice lubricant when putting the spokes together, and then it dries up and becomes a thread locker when you no longer need it. So at this point, again, I'm going to go do exactly what I've done. I'm going to go over, under, and I'm going to lace up all this. But I couldn't find my nipple driver, but I just got a small screwdriver. A nipple driver is kind of nice. It has a little slotted end with a little pokey in it, and then it's offset, and it's got a little dude where you can turn it and kind of drive the nipples. A standard small slotted screwdriver will work. Okay, now ready to do the last side. Also leading spokes. And again, you can just go ahead, drop them all in. Nothing stopping you. By the way, there's no need to write down everything I've just said. There are a million websites out there, probably with written instructions. I suppose the value of this video is to maybe follow up those written instructions and just hear someone say what's in writing, because it depends on how you learn. If you can read it and roll with it right away, that's great. If you want to see somebody lace a wheel like I just did, that's great too. The important thing is to start with a key spoke. That first key spoke, that one the one on the very beginning, the very first spoke, makes everything important. And then the second key spoke, also a trailing spoke, get those 2 in the right spot, you're in fat steady. And then of course, you got to make sure to turn the hub the right way, and then do your over, under. But yeah, there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and lace the rest of this, and that'll be it. I'll have a laced wheel. Normally you can lace up a wheel like this in about 10 minutes. Not working all that fast. Taking a little bit longer talking, but if it takes you longer, no big deal, who cares. If you're learning how to build a wheel and you're just playing around, just give yourself the time that you need. You'll also notice here, by the way, on this last round, you only have one place to put your spoke. So it just gets easier and easier as in terms of trying to figure out where you're going as you're going along.